Welcome. This is Mark, and tonight I'm having tea with Naya.
Mhm.
I'm very excited to having tea with Naya on a special evening, and it's been quite a while since Naya and I have had, tea together. And in
Mhm.
fact, Naya was probably one of my very, very early guests I had on my TV show. And, Naya has really been a very, active person in her own thing. And we were talking about, like right now, we're in the holiday season,
Mhm.
about 2014 going into 2015. We just had our, Christmas or whatever holiday celebrations that we've had going to the new year. And one thing that and I were talking about was a topic of forgiveness. So
Mhm.
now, why don't we just go back into what we were discussing before, okay?
Sure, of course. Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's really good to be back on your show. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, forgiveness. Basically, I was just saying that forgiveness is pretty important to me. Both in terms of forgiveness of other people, forgiveness of the self is particularly important. In some ways, it sort of begins with that. If you can't forgive yourself, your own flaws and humanity, being human, then how can you even begin to understand other people? And forgiveness of other people, but also forgiveness in general of general sort of, I mean, we're all, flawed beings, you know, in many respects. And one can focus on those flaws, or you can focus on, moving forward, because um, as I was saying, other people have their scripts and their experiences, all the things that make up who they are, their baggage, if you will. Um, and they're going to interact with you based on all of that stuff that they have. And you have your own stuff. But you can't, you have to find a way to sort of separate the two out, because you can't control other people. You can't even sort of walk their path for them. So you can't figure out why they do the things that they do. What you can do is you can figure out what's going on inside of you and figure out how you want to interact with the other person, how you want to incorporate their whatever it is that they're doing into your own life. And so forgiveness certainly plays a part in that whole process. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I could say more, I'm sure, but
Naya, one thing that does come up a lot is emotional healing.
yeah.
And can you, explain, how emotional healing is relevant in your life?
Sure, of course, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that came up the first time we talked, although I don't think it came up in that particular way with those specific words. But emotional healing is definitely something that's pretty much a constant part of my process, my journey, my path through this universe. Just because, I mean, I think everybody has something, um, you know, the various little tiny injuries that happen to one's emotional well-being throughout their life. Um, and you can't really compare, your whatever it is that's happened to you to whatever's happened to somebody else. It's just they're completely different things. So if somebody says, "Oh, I've had a worse life," well, I mean, you've had a different life, and I've had a different life. I've had than some other people have. Certainly some some of the things that I've been through, certain people can connect with, and some of the other things that I've been through, other people can connect with. But to date, I have yet to find anyone outside of my own family who can really connect with all the different aspects of things that I've been through, and I mean, that's just the way it is. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But as far as healing is concerned, healing begins with awareness. I've found, in the sense that you have to know what's going on. What is um, what's coursing through you. What are the things that you've been through, and what are they doing inside of you? What are you? How are you processing? all of the things that happen to you, and you can't begin to do anything with that stuff that's really productive without being aware of what it is to begin with. It's like fighting a beast and you don't even know what it looks like or what its strengths are, what its weaknesses are. You have to, you have to sort of tap into yourself, basically. Unplug from the social media and plug into you. And I think that's so, like I said, yeah, emotional healing begins with awareness and then you sort of go from there. Um, certainly one of the, the best a framework that's been really helpful for me that sort of come through the groups, the reasonability groups, that's, working with you and Tom Cassidy and all the others in the WhatsApp groups, is this whole idea of what would you choose? And it's the noticing and then the choosing. So you notice what your feelings are, what you're responding to, just whatever is going on with you, and then you get to choose. This whole idea of choosing, it is extremely healing just by itself. Just the idea, just giving yourself the permission, to choose, to say, I don't have to respond to things the same way that I did a second ago, you know, and I don't have to um, maybe I don't know where I'm going next, but I can certainly choose differently than I have if it's not working for me.
Naya, one thing
Yes, Mike?
about, forgiveness and healing, emotional healing, is a concept of the inner child.
Mm-hmm.
What is your level of your awareness of your inner child?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think most people who know me know that I am pretty in touch with my inner child. I have a playful nature. I, joke around. Um, and that's sort of the superficial level of being in touch with my inner child. I mean, I think it goes beyond that. And it's one of those things that has changed over time. I think, some years ago, I would say that I was um, the basically that the inner child was wounded and still is in some ways, in many ways, but being sort of shielded from everything, which is problematic. You can't hide away forever. Um, so I think my part of my path has been sort of reaching out to, the yeah, if you want to call it the inner child, who's not just simply playful, but is also hurt and needs, love and protection.
Naya, this might sound kind of out there, but thought I might ask. Do you have any awareness about past life?
That's not out there at all. No, I mean, I do have, when you say awareness, I believe in it. I think that I've heard stories that indicate that there's something there. What it is, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that I have, you know, a firm sense of what that means, but I mean, if we're if we're if all we are really is energy, particles and whatnot, then it seems to me that it doesn't really make sense for us to just disappear when we die, for example. So if that's the case, well, then you kind of have to extend it a little bit farther and say, well, that doesn't that indicate that uh, those who've so-called passed on still exist in some form? And if that's the case, well, then we keep going and we say, if that is the case, then all of those, those beings, those forms of energy are still among us and affecting who we are and how we live our lives. I don't know if this is the case. Don't have a clue. but it certainly is possible. Um, as far as past lives specific to me, I don't have any real sense of what that means. You know, I am sure that I have them, and but I have no idea. I haven't really connected with them. I assume that when one is in a dream state or some other sort of altered state, that you could theoretically tap into some of that. But you may not know, you probably wouldn't know that that's what you're doing unless it's really obvious. And for me, it hasn't been that terribly obvious. So that's what I got.
Well, we're going on to a deeper topic, okay?
Okay.
Is there any memory or recollection of anything having to do with physical or emotional violence or severe shaming early on? Maybe past life.
Well, I don't need to go to a past life for that. But on the other hand, I do know that all of that is both in my current past, if you will, but it certainly also runs very deep through my family history. So in a sense, that is kind of what you're calling past life because I know it's there and I have this sense of being able to, I don't know how to, I don't really have a good body of vocabulary to describe it, but you know, a lot of the things that have happened in the past, to people who are, directly connected to me, either by blood or something else, it's there. I know it's there. And I don't know what that means. I don't know how, exactly, but um, I know that my experiences, as bad as some of them have been, are not unique in the sense that they're connected to a larger thread, if that makes any sense.
No, I'm making perfect sense here, Naya, and this is some serious stuff. So I'm gonna ask you, a couple more questions. Might be, difficult, but is any type of rational or irrational fear, about your survival was something that could affect that?
Yeah. Oh, definitely, for sure. I mean, now I have both rational fears and irrational fears about a lot of things, but certainly specific to survival. And that means both literal sort of, you know, feeling like my life is in danger, or more generally just in terms of, how do I, um, not me personally, but sort of like how does whatever energy is me how is that going to sort of continue on, and how is it, and it's not really a linear process. I'm not really being very clear, um, but basically what I'm trying to say is that it's complex. It's a complex set of emotions, and, and
Naya, what holes or disharmony do you notice in your awareness?
holds or disharmony in my awareness. Um, I guess I guess I know generally that there are times when I'm more aware than other times. I know that I still shift into my script many times, and and sometimes I'm able to pull back right away, and sometimes not. I sometimes I think that I'm aware and choosing and all this, and then I'll realize no, not so much, because the things that I'm doing are not the things that I would choose, um, for another person. So that suggests that I'm not uh, actively unscripted choosing for myself, if that makes any sense. I mean that happens. I wouldn't say often, but it does happen. A fair bit. So I guess that sort of, and holes in my awareness. I, it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know. but I do know that they exist. Um, sometimes I can see them coming ahead, which is helpful because I'm like, oh, in this particular situation, I tend to fall out of awareness. I tend to fall, let my script sort of take over. Well, this time, we're going to try and do it differently, and here's how. And sometimes that works, and, most of the time it's sort of a trial and error kind of thing.
Naya, it's been very awesome, and this has really been a great conversation we're having here, and I feel a really great sense of connectedness. And we're talking about all this stuff because it's all boiling into something which I'm really feeling right now. And what, gifts, what special gifts or talents that you utilized as a child that brought you joy have you neglected throughout your adulthood?
What gifts or talents from my childhood have I neglected? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. Um, well, as I think I do work in publishing, but that's on the flip side of the page from where I really ought to be. I mean, I I love writing. I have a million ideas a second. Sometimes it feels like, but I haven't been working on them. I haven't actually done a lot of my own writing in a while, which is definitely something that I used to do pretty freely when I was a kid, and even when I was a teen. And I used to journal a lot. I used to write stories, and even in college when I had assignments that were pretty straightforward, you know, if there was any leeway, I would turn it into a creative project. So that's obviously something you know, in my toolbox that I haven't really tapped into as much as I used to. In fact, I used to do other creative things. I used to do paper cutting and some painting, um, other kinds of creative things. I have like boxes full of fabric I used to sew, and I just haven't been doing any of that. Now, obviously, it, there's it's not conceivable that I'm going to go back to doing all of them, but I think that it would probably be good for me to just use the concept of marginal gains and just sort of like, you know, weave in a few things here and there as much as possible. For example, right now, you wrapping presents is a pretty straightforward process, but I decided to ramp it up a bit this year and try and make the wrapping a little bit more fun, a little more creative, So uh, it's little things here and there.
Naya, we have a very big theme here
Hmm.
about healing and
Hmm.
forgiveness, and it's quite relevant how this is all happening now
Hmm.
because what I'm seeing is that through some past hurt or fear, you're neglecting to act out on your gifts and your talents that you
Hmm.
have as a child.
Yeah.
And a lot of what's happening, it has to do with forgiveness and emotional healing, which is where your strength actually lies in. So what is your heart telling you?
What is my heart telling me? My heart is telling me to do those things that bring the most joy to me and those that I love the most. I mean, that's without thinking about it, that's what comes to mind. I feel like if I think about it, then it's probably not my heart so much as my as other things. But I think that's what comes up first. You know.
Do you think that your script took away your desire to go after those childhood dreams?
I do. I do indeed, yes. And I think that even I think that there are, see, the problem with the script it can be a little insidious because it says, okay, wait, there are actual reasons you're not doing these things. So it's not me. I'm not stopping you. It's just, this is the way it is. You don't have time. Um, that's, that's pretty tricky because it's like it's hard to argue with that. You're like, I really don't have time. But the fact of the matter is that's not 100% true, right? Um, there's always, I mean, there's always a little more that one could do, even if it's as simple as just having one unscripted creative thought a day. Just calm the mind down and just be creative in a moment. Um, Whatever that means, in that particular moment. And I think that that's something, since you're asking me this, that's sort of an idea that I just came up with just now, and I think that actually is pretty cool. It happens anyway, just because. So maybe for me, what it means is just being more aware and giving myself a little bit more space to sort of breathe, with those creative moments and honor them, even if I can't, even if I don't, even if I'm prioritizing certain things over taking that creative thought and actually running with it and doing something with it, that it's still there's still a lot of value to be had in honoring what is already there. Um, and I think I could probably, I know, rephrase that. I know that I will, actually, rephrase it one more time. I will do more of that. And I guess I have, thank you for asking and pushing me to sort of think about these things in a more direct way.
This might sound relevant or apply. It's the biggest dream buster statement I've seen, but it applies to the script and what it says. Attempt to comply with the immediate demands of the outer situation. That's what the script does. It pulls you to meet the demands of something outer or not internal. It's always
Mm.
this. It's always the family. It's always I got to be there. I got to be there. I got to do that. I got to do this. But you're
Mm-hmm.
not giving yourself the time to do it for you and
Hmm.
do your thing. And what
Mm-hmm.
happens is that you build up the cycle and you create a little trap, help by the script.
Mm-hmm.
And what the thing is trying to tell you is forgiveness and
Mm-hmm.
follow your heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, something, Mark? It occurs to me that one of the gaps in my awareness is something that's very specific to my script, which is a sort of a like a knee-jerk reaction where I feel like I have to rationalize things. So like you're saying, okay, you could be tapping into childhood talents and desires and whatnot, and I'm sitting like it's actually running through my mind of retorts, things that I could say, well, hang on a second, I am doing this and I'm doing that, like, why do I guess what I'm trying to, because this is something that I do to other people, like it comes up fairly often, where I feel like I have to justify or explain something, and I don't know what that's connected to, um, but anyway, that it is what it
Well, the topic is forgiveness
is.
and
Yeah,
forgiveness of yourself. And that
I
starts the
knew where you
healing
were going with
process. And when you're healing, you're actually healing your inner child as well.
it. Yeah.
And what does it feel like, Naya, what does it feel like to you when you're connected with that inner child? How do you feel?
I It feels free, in the sense that like anything's possible, or just that there's joy, like pure joy, just happiness and connection to I don't know, to something, connection. I mean, it feels pretty good. It feels right. It feels safe. Um, it feels uh, like home, I guess, but in a good sense. Like something that you're supposed to return to. And I don't know.
Now, off the top of your head,
Yeah.
and just what would be the first thing that comes to mind when I say, what is your rightful power?
What is my rightful power? Uh, com- I guess the first thing that comes to mind is communication. And I'm assuming that means communicating with others or sharing idea. I don't know. That the word that came to mind was communication.
I'm going to read this affirmation,
Okay.
and I'd like you to elaborate on it and how it applies to you if it does. But I think based upon our conversation during this cup
Mhm.
of tea I'm having over here, that this is pretty relevant. The affirmation says, with compassion for myself and others, I engage the process healing from past wounds, and I embrace with joy the recovery of my wholeness.
Mm,
That's a pretty beautiful statement there, right?
that was, yeah. Can you read it again?
With compassion for myself and others,
Hmm.
I engage the process healing from past wounds,
Hmm.
and I embrace with joy the recovery of my wholeness.
Hmm. Mm. Embrace with joy, recovery of my wholeness. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's spot on, and that resonates pretty deeply. In fact, yeah, that's something that I should probably put on a post-it note and stick everywhere. I don't know. Uh, because I mean, there's so many things that are packed into that one statement.
There
Compassion
are.
for yourself, compassion for others. The idea of past wounds and recovering from them. And wholeness. Being whole. Um, wow. Yeah, there's a lot in there. I'm probably missing other stuff that you could pull out from it.
Well, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed this cup of tea with you, and we're all in holiday spirits over here.
Yes.
And I just want to say that there's somebody watching our show. Could be a lot live right now, or it could be someone watching it recorded,
Mhm.
and it could be someone that you probably do know. Maybe it's someone you don't know, a total stranger, and they're kind of like here, you know, any moment in time, just wondering or thinking about forgiveness. Having a hard time because they have these things that they want to do as a child that they haven't done as an adult, and they're feeling really bad about themselves,
Mhm.
or they're beating themselves up, or whatever. But forgiveness struck a chord with them.
Mhm.
What advice would you give someone about forgiveness?
I think that part of the thing that might sort of cause I, one of the things I think that I particularly get hung up on when it comes to forgiveness of other people or of myself, actually, it's the exact same, um, is that if it's hard to do, then it's because your vision of the other person or your vision of yourself is stuck in a, in a, in a, in a in the past or on a specific event, um, and it's stuck. Like you can't, you think about that person or you think about yourself, generally or in relation to what you're capable of doing or things like this, and your mind automatically goes to whole set of ideas, words, images, memories, um, preconceived notions of what's possible without, and that's where you're at. That's where you're at. And if you're doing that, well, that's what we call being in the script, of course. But if you're doing that, then it's really hard to to do something called forgiveness, which requires pulling away from that and either seeing what's possible or just simply seeing that somebody else has their stuff and that's not something you can't walk their path. That's one thing that you could do. Or if it's in relation to yourself, then just being able to see the possibilities, to be able to see the future in a sense, in the sense that the future isn't written and that nothing is set in stone. If it hasn't happened, then it hasn't happened, which means that it could happen any number of ways. Um, so forgiving yourself for things that you've done in the past is really a way of coming back to the present and acknowledging that there's an infinite number of futures. That's what I got, man.
I love it. I just wanted to say, Naya, I'm really appreciative and grateful for having you on my show
Hmm.
for the second time. You've been a great, contributor, and I really value everything that you've done. We've done a lot this past, almost been about a year. We've done a lot of things, covered a lot of things and everything like that. And to the 14th is closing, went into 2015. And
Woohoo!
I just want to say, in closing, when you say goodbye to everybody, what are you most grateful for?
Mm. Well, I mean, I have to say, I'm particularly grateful for my family. They're wonderful, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. I wouldn't be who I am, and as hard as it is to forgive myself for certain things, I am grateful for who they've inspired me to be, and I'm grateful to them for being there. I'm grateful for gratitude as well, just in general. The concept of gratitude, the ability to be grateful, is just an amazing force. At least it has been for me. It helps me. It's a lovely gateway out of the script and into awareness. Um, and I'm grateful for you and and everybody else that I've met, um, through the groups, and all those folks that are there and I haven't met, but I mean I'm certainly grateful for them as well. The lurkers, as as Ruth and I tend to call them. Um, Certainly I've been lurking a bit myself as I've tapped into other things that I'm doing. But anyway, yeah, just I'm grateful for a lot of things. I really am. Um, but and I'm grateful for this opportunity, to talk to you and to really actually learn some new things. In just this short, wonderful conversation that we've had. It's been, it's not a simple. It, it's a nice chat, but on the other hand, it brings up some stuff, and it's all good stuff, and it definitely makes me think. And I'm probably gonna go and write in my journal a bit about some of the things that came up.
Well, that's awesome, Niall. So we're going to say ciao for now. And you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you so much. This was wonderful, and thank you to whoever is listening. I'm hugely grateful to you guys, and Happy New Year!
Happy New Year. All right.
Yay!
All right, ciao.
All right, ciao.